What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Got to touch grass if you are introverted or you stay at home all day on your computer. If you're introverted, if you're extroverted, I hope you partake in some sort of social outing. And if you are both, then I hope you got a little bit of both. But anyway, guys, and if you are, going through something, I don't know what you're gonna do. Uh, People can be going through a lot of stuff. I know that, and I think it's impossible for us individuals who are, maybe suffering for something or suffering from something or in a situation to comprehend. I think oftentimes that our human mind just try to comprehend to the best of our ability of what other people are going through, but oftentimes we just can't, even though they may or may not share. But sometimes it's just we just can't, we're limited that way. But yeah, guys, I had a cool weekend. I checked out a new church this Sunday, and yeah, it was interesting meeting, listening to a different pastor talk, just because like I said, I'm still pretty new to this walk, you know, this walk, and the culture of churches are a bit different. And so now that I'm a little more, I guess, well versed in my walk with Christ, I wanted to check out the different churches and see what they're about and how they speak. So I got the chance to check out Grace Community Church, which was a big church. It was a big church compared to the little church, or a mid-sized church where I was coming from. And I've never been in a lot of churches. I've been to like maybe like one church. Well, the church I'm in now is like my main church, the one I frequent. But before that, you know, I went to churches, but I was kind of like a not what I wasn't really saved by God, so it's a different thing. But anyways, guys, today's topic that I want to talk about is the favor of God look often looks like suffering. And yeah, I want to talk about that because I've seen, I'm on the Christian TikTok space and the Christian Instagram space, so I see a lot of content, and sometimes there's like very self-fulfilling content, which is like content like, oh, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. It's kind of like I guess in Christian term is like prophetic content or whatever. And occasionally here and there I always come across like, oh, like signs you're favored by God, or whatever, right? And I think that there are lots of loophole. God, it's Monday night and I'm just trying to find the right words. Sometimes the best word I could come up is loophole. Oh, fallacy, right? With some of these posts, which I may or may not be right? But I'm just surely going off of the text, the Bible, and what I think the favor of God is, right? And like I said, these posts on TikTok and Instagram always talk about, oh, people are jealous and this and that, and oh, you have to favor God and this and I'm sure, guys, if you are curious enough, or if you happen to be in the Christian TikTok space or social media space, I mean, you'll probably come across it, and they always talk about like the good things. But me, I'm here to just give you the raw view. I like to give people the unbiased view of everything, and yeah, I think that's the best way, right? I don't want to give people false hope. Well, only because I only want to give you the truth, because I don't think you would appreciate the sugarcoating. At least um, the audience I'm trying to talk to, they probably won't, because I'm surely just trying to talk to people who want the truth. And so I was kind of wrapping my head around the favor of God, and I was thinking, like I said, there's a lot of flowery languages on the Christian TikTok space, and I'm like, you know what? Now that I think about it, the favor of God often looks like suffering. Dun dun dun. Hence today's title, right? That favor of God often looks like suffering, right? And to be honest, as humans, as people, we really can't tell if we're favored by God, right? Right. And right, it's I think to know that you're favored by God is to say, hey, I understand how God thinks. And that's like that's like an entire thing, right? And to be honest, like no human creature can understand God, right? As much as that we try to do our best to wrap our head around God, we are only human, and at the end of the day, that's the best we can go off of in that sense, right? And we could pretend that's not true. We could pretend that we're favored by God, or pretend we're not favored by God. But at the end of the day, like we really don't know, right? As people, we really don't know, and it's really not our job to find out whether or not we're favored by God. Our job is to live in faith and just walk one step at a time, and then do whatever He calls us to do, right? Whether that favors Him. When I say Him, what is that? I meant God. Whether that favors God or favors us, but we're called to surrender our own will, right? And follow His will, and not our plan, but His plan, right? And so, as I was kind of digging through the text, I was kind of writing down some of the characters in the Bible, and they're quote unquote favored by God, but they are favored by God. Don't get me wrong. Like, favor and unfavored, I think it's all about perspective. And yeah, I was writing down Job, like, and then Joseph is considered favored by God, right? We know how he ends up becoming a king, right? A king of Egypt. And but before that it actually happens, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused of sexual assault, and it was in jail for years, man. So can you imagine if you had siblings, and one day, and the next, you go to sleep, and next thing you wake up, and you you were in a bag, and you were being carried somewhere into slavery. Yeah, man, that sounds like suffering to me. So I don't know, is that Joseph sounds like he's suffering. But like I said, God's favor does often look like suffering, at least in the beginning, right? And there are other perspectives that you can look into it, right? The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell is another book. I don't want to sound pretentious here, but I've only read like previews and just like spark notes or themes of that book, The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. But I've always been interested in like themes like that, right? In movies, like in Star Wars and etc. etc. But personally, I've tried reading the text and it was way too complicated. But anyways, I'm kind of going off topic. And let's see, next character, right? Next character is Job. Yeah, Job. I would say he's Peter favored by God, right? He had like let me see. Let me scroll up to my notes. Let's see. Job. He had kids. He had wealth. He had health, and he had everything, right? God gave him ample amount of things, right? But during the process, right, the devil comes to attack Job, and you know Job ends up losing all the farm animals. Did he lose all the farm animals? Right. I I think Job lost all the farm animals. Hold on, let me double check. Um, I don't know. I am I've read Job before, but like yeah, I don't remember 100%, but I'm gonna try to do it from memory, right? I think Job did have farm animals, right? And guys, can you imagine, right? All of a sudden you lose everything. That's like equivalent to like you waking up and you go into your Animal Crossing account and you wake up and you realize all your animals are dead. And you're like, what the heck? What happened to my animals? Or like if you play Minecraft, I'm not sure that the boomers and the who watches the video will understand the humor I'm trying to make, but it's like God's favor, right? Going back to the point, often looks like suffering. It often looks like tryouts, right? And but we also realize that in with these Bible characters in the book, right? These characters stay faithful, right? They stay faithful. They stayed. Um, they don't. I mean, I don't want to say like they don't blame God, but I think as people, even us, even me, right? In current days, we'll have moments where when God puts us in a situation, whether it's like suffering or whatever season we're in, right? Either we're suffering or like we're in the good season. I think it's much harder when you're having suffering, but it's hard sometimes that I can't say that I blame them, right? I blame these characters because I empathize with them, right? Sometimes we go through seasons where we're suffering or we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and when you don't see the light of the tunnel, but you know who does? God does. And what does God call us to do? Walk by faith, not by sight. And yeah. And who else? Who else suffers in the book? Daniel. I think Daniel suffers in the book as well. Yeah, Daniel was about to get barbecue with his friends, and we usually barbecue meat, but Daniel was about to get barbecue, but because his great faith, right? He survived, man. Um, Daniel also was hanging out with lions, apparently. Not me, Daniel. I've never hung out with lions or been barbecued, thankfully, and I hope that that never happens. But yeah, guys. Yeah, it's a lot of suffering. But in the midst of suffering, that's where our faith is being trained up, right? In the seasons where we don't see results, in the seasons where we don't see the anything happening, is I think when we need to have the most faith in God. And who knows, right? Maybe the suffering will end, right? Sometimes God just shows up at the very end because when you think right, I guess lately the thought I've been having is that God wants you to God wants your situation to be impossible, right? Unlikely impossible to be flipped over. I think that is like the stage God wants to perform on. Because in order for you to get your faith strengthened, right? He wants to perform at the most unlikely, unadvantaged stage. God, I hope this makes sense. But I hope you know what I mean. When it comes to what I mean by God shows up in the moments of impossible where everything is going south. That is God's stage that He wants to show up. Because when He shows up for like the difficult times in the beginning, we could always be, oh man, like God Gini is gonna show up. But it's like the moments when we're suffering, the beginning, the middle, at the end, right? At the end, when we think that our faith is getting strengthened, and He shows up then and there, and He changed our situation. It's like people will recognize that and be like, this guy didn't do that. God did that. And so that's what I've been kind of thinking. Thinking about the favor of God, which often looks like suffering if we do know if we're favored by God. But like I said, oftentimes we don't know if that's God's favor, if that's like just our own mess, or maybe a little bit of both. But I think if there's anything that you could take away from this video is that to have faith in whatever storm you're in, because God is bigger than the storm. Okay? All right, guys, keep your eyes on the promise, not the problem, okay? All right, guys, until next time, take care of yourself and have a blessed day. See ya. Bye.